The following visual narrative in 3 parts covers the founding of the project at the PI's home, and a student-led extension of the project into on-campus residences, and a student-led extension of the project into the larger community beyond campus based in religiously affiliated food pantries. This project is an ongoing ethnographic participatory action service learning research project focused on facilitating community food security options for the on-campus student community as well as the entire community. In this project, we aim to grow and teach people to grow some of the most nutrient-dense foods, such as dark leafy greens, legumes, and root vegetables. These foods are simultaneously easy to grow, hard to access at their freshest when purchasing from conventional grocery stores, and thus at their most nutritious, and often, especially in terms of greens, expensive. As a service learning intervention, students learn both curricular and food security skills and facilitate the extension of that learning into the host community. By host community, we mean the Bryan College Station area and indeed the larger Brazos Valley in Central and East Texas. The images you are seeing here are located in the community of Bryan, Texas, where I, Sarah Gatson, the PI of the project, live. While the images are indeed focused on my food garden, the larger space involved here is a conventional, indeed suburban, community that was developed as part of a country club community, in that my house, which is an attached townhome, abuts the second hole of what until recently was a private golf course. My home was initially like every other home in my neighborhood, landscaped with a manicured lawn and ornamental plants. The lawn was cared for by a privately hired groundskeeper, and gradually we have turned it into an edible landscape and garden. We initially had to remove decking, a hot tub, and try to figure out how to repurpose both the housing space and the landscape towards food production. Abutting a golf course where golfers are often less than 20 feet from our garden has been, to say the least, interesting. We have repurposed interior portions of our space to do small-scale animal husbandry. As you see, our rabbits there, who produce cold compost manure for the garden. And we have repurposed lawns into food gardens. From that starting point, I began this project, and we began to offer the service of installing starter gardens purposed for vegetable production anywhere people resided. In terms of community food access, community food security indeed, being able to walk outside your door and acquire in a few steps rather than hundreds of food miles, greens, legumes, and root vegetables, in addition to the fancier heirloom tomatoes, is our intervention. We are located at the flagship Agricultural Extension University in the state of Texas. It is part of our mission statement to extend our learning and our research into the community. How can a community with up to 1/3 of its members experiencing poverty and food insecurity, and this includes undergraduates at the university itself, how can we best integrate our learning, our research, and our service into the community in which we live and ultimately serve? You see in these images both what I have grown and what I and my students are learning as we help others grow their own food. We are involved with both
My first week of living in an on-campus dorm room at Texas A&M University, I had my clothes, a 24-pack of water, and $5. At this point in time, my financial aid had not finished processing, and because of that, I did not have the resources to access any of the on-campus dining services. This is just one example of the struggles that I often face when trying to procure food. Even after the financial aid matter was resolved, it did not change the fact that I do not have a car. This affects the frequency at which I can go to the store, the type of food I buy, and how much I can purchase. I relied heavily on the university transit system to get to the local store. The transit system are reliable most of the time. It was not available during special events such as on-campus football games and some holidays. If I needed something from the store, I had to be strategic when it came to scheduling when I could go and how much food I could buy, keeping in mind the limited bus space and what I would be able to carry. Ultimately, I often chose to sacrifice fresh foods for convenience, price, and longevity. In my mind, fresh foods went bad too quickly for me to eat, and I would not be able to store them properly. It is these experiences which led me to my eventual participation in the Everybody Eats project nearly 3.5 years later. The Everybody Eats project seeks to develop a community-based food security resource network in the Brazos Valley. The social issue at the center of the project is community, grounded in the experience of creating and implementing a model of community gardening and food provision. My sub-project, reminiscent of my experience, evaluates food access and food security of students living on campus. True to the model of the Everybody Eats project, it seeks to implement community gardens near resident halls. However, such a venture requires altering an existing build. Our project has to show the feasibility of implementing such a feature. So we begin small by proposing container gardens for residents in the form of fabric grow bag. When discussing with residents about grow bag options, we evaluate it just like we would at a traditional garden. We take into account the space and placement. For example, dorms with balconies allow for plenty of light and space. Residents can place their containers outside their rooms and even set up a vertical planter attached to the balcony. Furthermore, depending on the size of the container, they can even grow a variety of plants. A 10-gallon bag can be divided into 4 compartments, each one for a different type of crop. 2 sections can be for greens, another a root vegetable, and the last section can contain a legume. Just in this container alone, a meal can be procured. It is my hope that the success of the Container Gardening in Dorm Rooms project will open a window of opportunity for larger gardens and greenhouses located outside of the dorms. Having a community garden accessible to students near their resident halls can present many benefits. It presents more options and flexibility for individuals with specific dietary needs. It's educational, allowing students to develop and nurture key life skills in food production and cooking. It also presents an opportunity to develop a sense of community among the students. It's important to note that these gardens are not a separate or unrelated objective for the university. This also supports the university's dedication to agriculture and agricultural education and sustainable practices.
Hunger relief in Brazos County, just as in the rest of the country, is a community effort. At 22%, Brazos County has a significantly higher food insecurity rate than the Texas average of 15%. To address this significant need, the Brazos Valley Food Bank, which distributes donated and USDA procured food to qualifying residents in the area, distributed over 3 million pounds of food to almost 90,000 households between July 1st, 2016 and June 30th, 2017. This distribution occurred primarily through its 7 partner agencies, 501c3 or 170c2 organizations that organize and administer food pantries that are open to the public. My corner of the Everybody Eats research agenda is concerned with these food pantries. Since January of 2017, I have been conducting a participant observation ethnography of the food pantries in Brazos County. My interest in this has been in the religiously affiliated food provision network, and because all 7 of the public pantries that serve Brazos County are religiously affiliated, this project has significant implications for the overlap of community and religion via the issue of food insecurity. The public food pantries are religiously affiliated in that they are organized, staffed, operated, and often located on the properties of the religious population of Brazos County. Within these spaces and during their operations, 2 complementary functions are being served: the distribution of public welfare goods to the recipients and the expression of religious obligations by the volunteers. However, with only 7 partner distributors currently in place and nearly 200 religious congregations in Brazos County, this leaves an enormous amount of actual room for the development of additional efforts targeting hunger relief. As a future stage of this research project, I propose to utilize the raised garden beds already being installed in households and offer them to be sited in the urban spaces of local congregations. The objective is to provide alternative and supplementary means to address food provision efforts in the county, as well as create a sustainable model of involvement in community efforts. Current trends in religious involvement in the United States, as well as the need for welfare services, suggests that more novel and adaptable approaches to food provision will be needed in the near future. The proposed method of urban agriculture emphasizes the communal aspect of sacred spaces and utilizes the significant amount of physical space and potential human energy contained within the religious congregations of the area. The outcomes of interest for this project will be the impact, or perhaps lack thereof, on the participation rates of religious individuals in food provision efforts as a result of involvement with these congregation gardens, as well as the religious meaning associated with them.
As I noted in the beginning of the presentation, this is a brief visual narrative of a project that has been ongoing since 2013, involving at this point over 120 students. The project works in the format of what we call a research-intensive community, which involves a project and lab run by a principal investigator. And from there, graduate students or indeed advanced undergraduate students develop their own interdependent projects within the larger project. Those students then lead teams of other undergraduates in helping them develop their project. At our developing website, this is our draft website, so it's open and anybody can see it, but it's being developed further right now by a team of students. everybodyeats.tamu.edu. You will be able to see some of our past work, including research posters, service learning documents produced by students, and updates from participants in the project, people for whom we have built raised bed vegetable gardens. Over time, the website will involve more interactive spaces so that participants can engage in their own voices and develop as peer educators in the community food security facilitation process. Ideally, what we intend as one of the major outcomes of this project is a regional seed library where participants can interact with their own developing skills in food production and in developing community food security, developing a locally adapted seed library from which the entire community can participate and access foods that we have experience growing, harvesting, preparing, and eating. Thank you.